America's workers, a day to honor the labor movement that built this country and built our middle class. It recognizes all Americans working hard every day to support families and contribute to community and power our economy. Over the summer, as I know the senator from the presiding officer has traveled to Arizona over the summer, I've been all over my state of Ohio talking with those workers. Steel workers in Toledo, bus drivers in Canton, VA healthcare workers serving our veterans in Chillicothe, union mechanics in Columbus. They live in different communities, they come from different backgrounds, but work, the dignity of work, unites all of us. We take pride in hard work in this country, and we believe, as Dr. King said and Pope Leo XIII said, that all work has dignity, whether you punch a clock or swipe a badge, whether you work for tips, whether you take care of aging parents, whether you're raising children, or whether you're a new grandparent. No matter who you are, where you live, or what kind of work you do. For far too many people, hard work isn't paying off. Productivity's gone up, stock prices have soared, executive compensation is stratospheric, but wages have barely budged. This isn't a coincidence, it's not an accident of the market. It's not an inevitable result of our system of capitalism. Wall Street has the power in this economy. They're obsessed with accumulating more wealth for the people who already have it. The system we have, where most of the gains in the economy seem to go to those at the top, is by Wall Street's explicit design, and it comes at the direct expense of American workers. We don't always make the connection. People are rightfully angry, but they don't think about how decisions in corporate boardrooms and on the floors of stock exchanges thousands of miles away affect their job opportunities and their wages. Corporations focus on short-term performance on the stock market, not the long-term success of the company and its workers. Their main goal too often becomes increasing stock prices quarter to quarter. That's how CEO performance is evaluated. They're compensated in large part with company shares. Stocks can account for as much as half of an executive's compensation package. Corporations therefore juice those stock prices by repurchasing their own stock, what we call stock buybacks. Here's how it works. There are a finite number of company shares at any given time. Purchasing shares will decrease the number of shares available to investors and therefore drive up the price of the value of the remaining shares. Existing shareholders will see their stock value increase. Lo and behold, often those existing shareholders are the executives of the company. This is often an even more attractive option to executives than dividends because buybacks are more flexible and under current law, they aren't taxed until the shares are sold. That's what we want to change. The economy hasn't always worked this way. A few decades ago, most of Wall Street capital funded the real economy, wages, machinery, research, new construction, expansion of the company. Stock buybacks used to be considered illegal market manipulation. Think about that. Stock buybacks then used to be considered illegal market manipulation. Today, they've become routine. Now only 15% of capital goes to the real economy, while the amount corporations spend on buybacks has just exploded. Between 2004 and 2013, Home Depot, one of the a great company by most measures, Home Depot in that decade spent 99% of its net income on stock buybacks. 99% of its net income on stock buybacks. IBM spent 92%. That's right, some companies spend close to 100% of their profits on their own stocks rather than workers' wages, rather than expanding the company, rather than investing in research and development. And it's only gotten worse since Washington Republicans' 2017 tax giveaway to these corporations. We all remember, and I've pointed this out before, the lobbyists down the hall in front of Senator McConnell's office, the corporate lobbyists that were lined up one after another as Senator McConnell decided on behalf of his members and with President Trump during the Trump-McConnell presidency, how Senator McConnell handed these companies a windfall. Their executives turn around. Now, I remember Senator McConnell when he walked down walked down the hall here after doing his conversations, I'll just leave it at that, conversations with his lobbyist friends. He'd walk down the hall and he'd stand at the majority leader's, then the majority leader, and I think that tax giveaway is part of the reason he's no longer the majority leader. But he would say that that's going to trickle down, and workers are going to get raises, and companies are going to expand, and benefits are going to go to the whole economy. Well, not exactly what happened. When he handed them that windfall, you know what the executives did? The executives that were lobbying him, the executives that were contributing to the campaigns, the executives who control the Wall Street Journal editorial board, you know what they did? They turned around, they plowed that money right back into stock buybacks, which meant, lo and behold, right into their own pockets. The largest U.S. companies in 2018, right after the tax giveaway, over $1 trillion, 70% went to the richest 1%. Don't forget that number. 2018, the largest U.S. companies spent more than $800 billion in stock buybacks, a 50% increase from the previous year. A 50% increase because they got that largesse from the federal treasury. They spent more on stock buybacks than on debt payments, than on capital expenditures, than on research and development, than on dividends. In other words, the real economy. Now in 2021, millions of families struggle to recover from this pandemic and get back on their feet. You might think things would change. We're hearing a lot of companies, you hear it in Arizona, I hear it in Ohio, a lot of companies complain about supposed labor shortages. You might think that these companies that are sitting on cash, it might cause companies to reassess. They need more workers. Maybe they should cut back on juicing their stock buybacks. Instead, they could permanently raise pay or increase retirement contributions or offer better health care plans or invest in new training programs, all of those to attract new, better paid, more satisfied, happier workers. But no, this year, corporate stock buybacks are on track to approach or even surpass the 2018 record. Proponents of stock buybacks argue that companies purchase their own shares only after considering other value-creating investment options. In other words, companies are arguing, we do stock buybacks. Yeah, you're right. It makes us a little richer individually, and we can buy that third or fourth home in Florida or on the Cape or on Lake Erie or whatever. But we consider everything that would be good for the company. We funded all that, so then we do stock buyback. That's a ridiculous argument. Talk to any family in Cleveland or Chillicothe or Mansfield or Marietta or Springfield, anywhere outside of Wall Street. Ask these families if they can think of a better investment for the trillions, thousands of billions, trillions of dollars in wealth American workers have created. But of course, executives' personal interests influence their decision-making. One study of 2,500 companies found that the greater the percentage stock options in executive compensation packages, the more likely a company was to make stock buybacks. That's fairly logical. The greater the percentage of stock options in an executive compensation package, the more likely a company was to do stock options. To make stock buybacks. So how do we stop this never-ending cycle of corporate greed in making sure that workers are sharing the profits they create? We start with a new bill that Senator Wyden, the chair of the Finance Committee, and I are introducing, the Stock Buyback Accountability Act. The tax code is one of the best tools we have to influence businesses. Our idea is simple. If you want to buy back your own stock, you have to pay just a little bit, 2% tax on the money you make off of it. 2% is pretty small. It's a hell of a lot less than the tax rate that workers at First Solar, which I'm going to visit this week, and Perrysburg are paying, or workers at Whirlpool, or workers at the local corner store, at the local Dave's supermarket in Garfield Heights are paying. But that little tax will make companies think a little harder about whether stock buybacks are really the best use of their trillions in profits. I hope it will make it a little more likely they'll invest their money in something useful, something like a new factory or research into new products or training and apprenticeship programs or pay raises for the workers that are making these profits possible. Has to be the goal of any stock buyback plan. It's not about punishing executives. I'm indifferent. I always believed it's whom you fight for and what you fight against. I will always fight for workers in this job. I don't have any interest in punishing executives. I just don't want to unduly reward them at the expense of workers. It's about executives paying their fair share just like their workers do. It's about changing the incentives in our economy so that more of our country's wealth gets invested back to the people who create it. We've known for years that stock buybacks are a problem. They distort the market, they lead to less long-term economic growth, they divert investment from workers. That's why I talk worker pay, not stock buybacks. We have a real chance to actually do something about it. After years of politicians talking about reining in Wall Street, now's our opportunity to do it, to show people we're listening, and to take action. Worker pay, not stock buybacks. Create a fairer tax system. Creating a fairer tax system is one of the simplest ways to change the Wall Street and corporations first system that Americans are so tired of. We make this simple fix to finally crack down on stock buybacks. We get rid of the tax breaks for corporations that ship American jobs overseas. We make multinational corporations pay their fair share instead of always forcing working families to foot the bill. We crack down on wealthy tax cheats that game the system. We give working families the largest tax cut ever. We did that in the bill we passed in March. We're going to do that in the bills we passed this fall. It comes back to the dignity of work. Wall Street simply doesn't recognize that all work has dignity. They consider shareholders' equity in a company to be all that matters. But workers have equity in a company too. It's called sweat equity. It's time they were rewarded for it. Worker pay, not stock buybacks. President, I yield the floor.